Hey everyone, welcome to the Sun's Hour with Google Summer of Code Awareness Session 2022 organized by the FOSS community of SLIIT. We are so excited to have you on board and to discover how you can turn Google Summer of Code 2022 into the best decision you've ever made. Today we have our speakers for the day, Rajika Imal and Asay Pires. Rajika Imal is a senior software engineer at Work Class and Asay Pires is a software engineer at Arimac. Speakers, the stage is yours.
Hi guys. Yeah, thank you for joining this session. So in this first talk, I will try my best to cover what is Summer of Code and how you can participate as a student in Google Summer of Code. And yeah, so how you can also actually get started as a student, and also now uh, they let non-students to participate in Google Summer of Code as well. But I think most of you guys are students at the moment, so yeah, we'll go through it and let's see how you can get started. Just a bit about myself. So I'm currently working as a software engineer, and you can find me in any of the mediums using this handle, and also my website is also online. Um, yeah, so Google Summer of Code. So what is it really? So it's actually a program which is funded by Google, and it's an annual program, and also it's an international program. So every anybody who is a student, also now who's a non-student can participate in this program, and uh, after like getting into this program, there are so many benefits, so I will go through all the benefits as well. So the most important thing is this program is based on open source software. So if you are not aware of what open source is about, so I will go through it about I'll also go through it about open source software in the next few slides as well. So like if you want to get a brief idea, you can go to this website as well, and you will see all the details about the Google Summer Program in 2022. And yeah, so moving on, before going into the details and the intricacies of Google Summer of Code, let's ask a question: why GSoC? So the first thing is actually the experience. So as a student, getting some kind of experience coding with the open source software, and having the experience of interacting with your mentors is a good thing. And personally, I think it helped me a lot as a student and to get into the industry as well. So I think the experience is very good when it comes to getting more skills, and yeah, progressing through your career as well. And also this is a very good thing to have in your CV as well when you are applying for a first job, and also the consecutive jobs as well, because when you have Google Summer of Code as an experience in your CV, it's a huge bonus, I would say. Yeah, so experience is a huge plus point. And it's a very prestigious program that you can take part in as a student, especially because if you think about like the other programs, this Google Summer Code program, it's very hands-on. So you will be coding for at least 3 months. So it's a very prestigious program that you can take part in as well. And the skills. So at last, the skills matter, right? So when you complete this Google Summer Code program, I'm sure you will have many skills that you did not have at the start of the program. So you will get a very specific set of skills based on the area that you're working on. So I will go through which areas that you can work on in Google Summer of Code depending on your interest. So based on your interest, actually, you can choose what you're working on. So that's actually another interesting part of Google Summer of Code. It's not like someone is forcing you to do some project when you are participating in Google Summer of Code. All right, so I said something about open source. So I assume many of you already know what open source is, but just to get an idea about open source. So basically, open source is the code. I mean, some sort of software that's open to everybody, but still there are some sort of licenses based on the company or the based on the individual who's developing the projects. So there are like different licenses like MIT, GNU, GPL, Apache. So there are different types of Apache licenses as well. So depending on this, there are certain rules that um, I would say uh, the rules that are developed and for certain reasons actually. So based on the licenses, it will get complicated on how you can use the open source programs, but mostly uh, they are very well open, meaning that you can use most of the open source software without any uh, intricacies or any issues at all. So just to keep in mind, there are different types of licenses when it comes to open source software. So basically, open source software is software where you can see the source code itself, and the other part is closed source software. So meaning that you can't see the source of your software, which is mostly like the software that we are working on when we are working on a company. And the next thing that I'm going to cover is GitHub. Again, I guess most of you guys are pretty familiar with GitHub, but still, this is very important for Google Summer of Code. So prior to GitHub, there were few open source hosting platforms, I would say, like SourceForge. But right now, GitHub is the most prominent platform out of all the hosting platforms. So we also have things like platforms like GitHub, GitLab, and yeah, Bitbucket. So there are also some competitors to GitHub as a hosting service. So most of the organizations. So I will also cover what are organizations in Google Summer of Code. So most of them use GitHub to host their repositories. So these are few of the features GitHub provides. So you have free repository hosting, and you have issue tracking, pull requests, project management, and they have a marketplace for different packages, and yeah, many more features like code spaces and security features, things like that. So basically, if you are participating in GitHub, 90% of the time you will be using GitHub to uh, GitHub as the hosting service, and you will be using it to develop your software. So this is actually just a screenshot that I got a few years back actually, but of course, so the idea is just to improve your GitHub presence before applying to Google Summer of Code. It doesn't have to be like this because this person, this particular individual, he works at Facebook. So yeah, so he's a co-contributor to React, and he's also one of the co-authors of Redux. So I just got a screenshot of his GitHub profile just for you guys to like to show what a good GitHub profile looks like. So yeah, so I will also like tell you guys more about how to improve your GitHub presence as well. So let's move on from this. And yeah, so before moving into like the specific details about Google Summer of Code, so these are a few of the uh, uh, individuals that I think you might consider to follow, because when I was also a student, what I did was following these people who have a really good GitHub presence like this. So I just went through their GitHub profiles and went through their contributions. You can see at the bottom of this screenshot, there are it shows the contribution graph, and you can go through the number of contributions and what kind of issues they are opening and what kind of PRs they are opening, and how they interact with people. So just to get an idea about how they interact with the open source community, I went through their profiles. So this is like a brief list of people that I already follow actually, and these individuals are from good companies like Facebook, Google, Netflix. So actually, just to be clear, I wouldn't recommend this person right now. Maybe you can do some kind of background search. Yeah. So yeah. Um, yeah. So out of these people, I would recommend all of them except for this person. And yeah. So just go through their profiles and see what they're doing, how they are interacting with the open source community, and most importantly, I think you should read their code as well, because since these guys are like proven individuals who interact with the open source community, and they also develop a very important software like React. I think most of the companies nowadays use React, and if somebody is working on the React core team, then obviously uh, uh, they are some good individuals who you can follow. So I think you can go through these profiles and see how they're interacting with the open source community, and also most importantly again, you should read their code as well. So that's just a bit of a sidetrack. And yeah, so now we are getting into Google Summer of Code, and how you can choose an organization. So we will go through each of these topics. So choosing an organization, proposal submission. So there's something called a proposal for Google Summer of Code, and how you can start with the initial contribution to an organization, and at last getting feedback from the mentor. So this is like how to get started, and after this phase you need to progress through more in order to get selected and progress through the program itself. So first let's go through these individual sections. Yeah. So there are different stages in GSoC. So the first stage is proposal submission. So at the start, you need to create something called a proposal, and then you need, and then the next stage is actually community bonding. So let's assume that you get selected to Google Summer of Code, and then the next phase is community bonding. So community bonding is interacting with the community of your organization, and after that you have different stages of evaluations, meaning that you just submit your code, and then your mentors and other mentors of the same organization will evaluate your work, and they will decide whether to progress you to the next stage or not, depending on how you work, and depending on your submissions as well. Yeah. So I think I mentioned a few times about user organizations. So organizations are a critical part in GSoC, because these are the entities, I would say, who are presenting their open source projects to Google, and then after that Google goes through these projects and select a particular number of organizations. So for an example, Ruby, TensorFlow from Google, and Scholar from Sri Lanka, and FOSS Asia. So different organizations, they have many projects under them, and then what they do is at the start of the year they present their projects to Google, and Google selects a particular list of organizations based on the projects and different sorts of areas that they have. So different areas, for an example, cloud, mobile, web, something like React. So based on different technologies and based on sort of the quota that they have for different organizations and technologies, they select a list of organization, and they announce it around March. So right now, I think yeah, they have already announced the list of organizations. So what you can do is you can go to the GSoC website, and you can see the organizations who are already participating in GSoC for 2022. So select this browse all, this blue button, and then you will see the list of organization. And also you can also filter them based on different technologies as well. So I will also show a bit of this. So yeah, um, so choosing organization, it's very important, because as a student, sometimes you might have a certain set of skills or certain set of technologies that you have already worked with. So based on this, you can actually choose your Google Summer of Code organization. So there are like many organization, at least so I'm not quite sure the number of organization for this year. So let's say at least 30, right? So going through all these organizations and going through all the projects that they have, it's actually something hectic. So what you can do is you can narrow down this list of organizations based on your interest, or the your set of skills that you have already acquired throughout your the academic years. So what you can do is you can go to this website again, and then browse all the organization, and they will have tags, technologies, and topics. So based on this, you can actually narrow down the list of organizations. So if you want to work on, for an example, let's say cloud, you can select the tags or the topics, cloud, or compilers, or based on the language, you can choose whatever the tag you want, like Go, Node.js, Python, whatever the language. So based on the skill set, or based on the experience that you have already, you can narrow down the organization, so that you will have a better chance of getting into the GSoC program. So yeah, and yeah, so this is just a screenshot of the organization page. So you can just Google this, and I hope you can go to this page again and narrow down it. And based on your interest, you will end up on pages like this. So this is the Ruby organization. So if you are interested in compilers and languages, you might want to work on certain areas of the Ruby compiler, or certain Ruby gems, or the package manager bundler. So based on that, you can choose your organization. So this is an example of an organization page, and you can see that there are technologies. So they have Ruby on Rails, Ruby gems, and bundler. This is the package manager, and then they have different topics. Um, and if you walk through this page, they will have certain set of instructions on how to get started with the organization. And this is actually quite important. um, Networking with the organization. So you have to introduce yourself to the organization mentors. So usually mentors will be very active in either the mailing list, or some organization use Gitter, or IRC, depending on the organization. So this actually depends on the organization, and usually the mentors are very active in actual and in one of these mediums, I would say. So yeah, so based on your organization, see what they are, what their preference is. So if their preference is mailing list, then you should interact on their mailing list. If their preference is Gitter, then of course you should go to Gitter, do a certain introduction of yourself. So I will also show an example of an introduction of how you can introduce yourself to the mentors of the organization. So this is something that I consider as a good introduction of yourself. So this student, he's using the mailing list for Scholar. Um, so he's using the mailing list, and he's clearly stating what stage he is at. So he is in third year, and he's an undergraduate at this particular university. And he's mentioning about his experience so far, so that the mentors can get some sort of idea about his experience, and and also the number of years that he has worked with these technologies, and his past experience as well. So he has worked on this program called Summer of Haskell. So that's a good thing. That's a good indication of what he has worked on and what sort of person he is. And yeah, so and then he is mentioning about what sort of projects that he is interested in this Google Summer Code organization. So in this case, it's a Scholar. So this, I think, this is actually a good introduction of yourself. So if we break down, so you are mentioning who you are, at what kind of stage you are in, and your past experience with certain languages, and how many years or how many months that you have experience with these technologies. Here it's Python and C++. And after that, he has also mentioned his past experience. So this is not a must, but this is actually good because he's mentioning about this open source program. And yeah, so this is also again a good indication of what sort of a contributor he would be for our organization. Yeah, and at the end, he's mentioning about, so we know that he has done some research. So he's mentioning about our projects in the organization, so that mentors have some sort of a positive idea about this student. So this is sort of a solid introduction. Yeah. Okay, so the proposals. So before getting into the program itself, you need to create a proposal. So the proposal structure depends on your organization, and different organizations have different proposal structure. So and you can have three proposals. You can submit three proposals. So I would recommend you should focus on quality rather than quantity. So rather than going for, I would say, three mediocre proposals, it's okay to have one solid proposal. So that's just my personal preference, so that you have a better chance of getting into one organization rather than having just three mediocre proposals for three different organizations. And also you can you can submit three proposals to the same organization as well. But personally, I would recommend having a quality proposal rather than having just going for three mediocre proposals. Yeah. So before submitting the proposal itself, this is my recommendation. So again, this depends on the organization itself, but most of the organization, they recommend for recommend students to create draft proposals. So you need to use the organization template. So how to find this organization template? So go to the Google Summer Code program page and find the organization. So like I said, you need to drill down through the tags and topics and find the organization. And for an example, if it's a Scholar, you need to go to the Scholar page, and they will have the link to the Scholar Summer Code page. And after that, in most of the organizations, they will clearly show the proposal template or the organization proposal template on their website itself. So if you go to, like, for an example, Scholar, it will be shown at the top of the page in Google Summer Code 2022 page. Yeah. And you need to use this template. So we recommend using Google Docs. So again, most of the organizations use Google Docs. And so after that, once you create a draft proposal, so still this is in the draft proposal, right? So this is not submitting a proposal, still you are in the draft stage. So what you can do is you can share this Google Doc with your mentors, so that prior to submitting your proposal, prior to the submission deadline, at least I would say 2 weeks, so that's a good margin, you can share this Google Doc with your mentors, so that you can get some comments about your draft proposal. So it's not just submitting a proposal just on the submission date. So you can keep sort of a margin and submit your draft proposal to the mentors. So the good thing about this is the mentors will get an idea about you prior to the real submission, and they will try to give some comments as well. So if there's something wrong, or if there's something that you can improve in the proposal, they will comment on the proposal itself so that you can improve your recommendations, or you can improve what you're going to do in the 3-month period in the draft proposal itself. So again, my personal preference is at least 2 weeks, but 1 week is also fine. But based on the schedule of the mentors, it might be hard for you to get comments within 1 week. So my personal preference is at least have a gap of 2 weeks in order to get some comments on your draft proposal, so that you can improve it further, like iteratively. And early contributions, they are very important. Again, my personal preference. This is not a must. This depends on the organization and how they select students based on their criteria. But I think everybody would like if a student is contributing even before the project itself. So this actually gives a better impression about the student, because even before starting the project itself, the student is doing some sort of contribution. So it doesn't have to be maybe it doesn't have to be code contribution itself. You can just improve documentation. So that's a good start. So improve documentation. So that's a quite okay start. And gradually you can move into maybe unit tests. You can change unit tests. You can add unit tests. So you can improve the unit test coverage from 70 to 80. You can improve end-to-end test coverage if there are end-to-end tests. So based on the different facets of your project, you can contribute to different areas. Yeah, and then finally maybe you can uh, contribute to the code itself, or maybe you can just directly contribute the code if you are okay with the code base. So that's also fine. So the idea is actually just to uh, get your hands dirty before the program itself, so that your mentors get a good impression about you as a student. And communication is key. So you have to show that you are very active, and you are willing to participate in this program, and you are willing to put in your time and do the work. Otherwise, they will not trust. They might not trust in you, because if you are barely replying to their messages, or if you're barely interacting with the community, then that's not a very good impression. So you need to have a good communication, or yeah, so you need to communicate regularly with your mentors through different channels. It may be again a mailing list, or you can use something like Gitter. So based on the organization, it differs. Yeah, and then obviously try to finish your draft proposal before the deadline. All right, so now we are at the proposal submission stage. So if we just recap a little bit, so we discussed what is an organization, and how to choose an organization by narrowing down using the tags and the topics and the technologies. And once you find an organization, you create at least at most three proposals, and then you create draft proposals as well, and try to get feedback also from the mentors. And after you get the feedback and you are happy with the proposal, and now we are at the proposal submission stage. So make sure you get all the feedback that you can get from your mentors before submitting your proposal. Again, focus on quality rather than quantity. This is my personal preference, but if you have the time, then it's fine, because Google is allowing each student to submit three proposals, so it's fine. Mm, and submit early. So make sure you don't miss the deadline. Just don't wait till the deadline itself, you can submit early as well. Yeah, so fingers crossed. So you are praying and you are in. So you are very happy. You are in Google Summer of Code program, Google Summer of Code 2022. So what's next? So the next stage is community bonding. So this stage is just for you to gain interact with the community in your organization and get to know more about the community itself, and also for the community to get to know about you. And also you can use this time period to learn, or I would say polish your knowledge on the different areas or the technologies that you're going to work on in this 3 months period. And so still, even though you are in, you need to regularly communicate with your mentors. So that's very important. So this is something that you have to keep in your mind. And also, just so that you get into the program itself, it doesn't mean that you can't improve the proposal, because iteratively anything you can improve. So this is also a time for you to improve the proposal with the feedback from mentors. So this is actually one thing that I think students don't know. So you can change your proposal as well based on the feedback of your mentors. So after community bonding period, there are usually three evaluations, but I'm not quite sure in this year there will be three evaluations. But usually there were three evaluations. So an evaluation is just submitting your code before the deadline. So there are three evaluation periods. So usually it's just 1 month of coding and then again evaluation, 1 month of coding and again 1 month of coding. So yeah, so three evaluations, and before the submission deadline, you just have to submit few documents relating to your work. And in each evaluation, your mentors who are working with you, they will evaluate your work throughout this period, and they will come to a decision whether to proceed you to the next stage or not. So sometimes students fail from evaluation 1, so sometimes students fail from evaluation 2, and even sometimes from evaluation 3 as well. So make sure to communicate with your mentors regularly, and make sure you're active in the community and actively participating in the program, so that you don't get uh, out of the program in between these evaluations. So if that happens, that's very unfortunate, because you have already got into the program and then you are getting out of the evaluation. So make sure to communicate with your mentors regularly. Yeah, so the coding period. So the evaluations are within the coding period. Um, so basically, you are just coding in this period. You are working, getting your hands dirty, working on the projects, regularly communicating with your mentors on what to do. So based on the objectives and the uh, the things that you have set up before starting the coding period, you are working on these objectives. And yeah, so basically you are coding in this period. And also based on the organization, it it they might require you to write blog posts and also write documentation. So this again depends on the organization. So for an example, Scholar, they will tell you to write blog posts weekly, and also write documentation when you are progressing through the project itself. And also you need to add your daily updates or weekly updates about your project progress. Again, this depends on your organization. So some organizations might want you to add daily updates, but some they will tell you to add weekly updates in their mailing list or in their Gitter channels. So it depends on the organization again. Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, there are three stages of evaluation. So students submit their work. So basically submitting what you have worked in the couple of weeks, and mentors review your project work, and then they decide whether to move on or not based on your performance. All right, so yeah, so if you go through the evaluations, you are good to go. So you have completed the Google Summer of Code program. So you will get some incentives. So this time it's 1,500 minimum. So depends. This incentive depends on the project. So if it's a small project, the amount is 1,500 if I'm not wrong. And if it's a large project, I think for Sri Lanka, so these amounts are based on the Sri Lankan FPP. If it's a large project, it's $3,000. So these are in USDs. Um, yeah, so this is something good as an incentive for you as a student, especially. Yeah. So based on the evaluation period, you will get some sort of percentage of your incentive. So in evaluation one, you might get, after you passed evaluation one, you might get 30% of this incentive of this amount. Um, yeah, and this work period, it's actually 3 months. So this is something that I missed to include here. Yeah, and you will get some swags as well after completing this program. You'll get a T-shirt. Yeah, some notebook. Yeah. So you complete GSoC, and so what are the benefits at the end of doing something? Um, yeah, so in my experience, I think this GSoC Google Summer of Code experience is something different that you can get compared to other internships that you can do in the companies, because this is 100% related to open source. If you work in a company as an intern, it might be open source, but of about 90% of the time it's not open source. And you are not working with the community as well, community of volunteers. So this is just working remote and showing that you can work in a team um, as a student. So this is something where I can show your skills as well. So I think this experience that you gain from this GSoC program, it's very valuable compared to other internships. Yeah. And again, this is one of the most prestigious programs that you can participate as a student. So, out of all the programs that I've known throughout these years, most of the students try to get into Google Summer of Code. And the skills that you gain actually from these projects throughout this 3 months period, I think they will be very, very valuable for you to kickstart your career as well. Because if you are like, let's say, in third year or even fourth year, then this experience is a very valuable experience to include in your CV as well. So it will be very helpful for you to kickstart uh, in a very good fashion, to kickstart your career in a very good fashion. So a little bit about Scholar. So I think I mostly covered about GSoC on how to get started, how to filter your organization, how to choose projects, how to create a draft proposal, how to communicate, and then submitting your proposals and different stages of GSoC, and yeah, the benefits of GSoC as well. So I'm just going to briefly mention about Scholar Basel, because this is the organization that I was part of as a student. I think it was in 2017, and then I was also part of this organization as a mentor as well. So just mentioning about this organization, and also in 2022 they are also part of Google Summer of Code. So if you're interested in the areas that they have projects in, so you can go to their Google Summer of Code project and see what their projects are all about. And if you're interested in the different areas or the projects or the technologies, you can obviously get uh, get the contacts of the mentors, and yeah, and then move on from there. So Sustainable Computing Research Lab, so they have been part of Google Summer Code for quite a long time now, and they have different areas and they develop applications in different areas as well, like sensor networks, embedded systems, information security, mobile applications, and yeah, even blockchain, cloud, different areas. Yeah, so like I said, they have a wide variety of technologies: blockchain, cloud computing, mobile application, embedded systems. Yeah, different technologies that you can choose from based on your interests. And yeah, so these are just a few projects. And yeah, so if you're interested in JavaScript, TypeScript, and sort of transpilers or compilers, you can look at NodeCloud. Go Cloud is also similar. This is something written in Go. And there are a few other projects as well called Bassa, Raven. Yeah, these are a few projects. Um, yeah, so like I said, I was part of this organization as a student, and then I was given the opportunity to be a mentor as well. So one thing that I mean, there are so many things that I've gained as a student by participating in Google Summer of Code for this organization, and also being a mentor as well. So just to like show you again, this is warning, not a flex, just for inspiration. So as a mentor, I got the chance to go to Google Office, and then uh, be part of the Google coding mentor summit. But Google Summer of Code mentor summit is pretty similar as well. So I got the chance, and I'm very thankful for some Scholar and also Google as well. So again, this is not a flex, just for inspiration for you guys. Like to, if you are a student, then maybe you will also get a chance to work as a mentor as well, and also you will get the chance to like travel and get to know about different cultures, and also meet Google engineers. So I've also got so many inspiration stories by meeting them. So this is just for inspiration for you guys to see. Yeah. Yeah. So if you have any other questions, maybe there are common questions about Google Summer of Code on how to apply, or how to create a proposal, things like that. You can just go through the fact. If the questions do not answer your the answers do not answer your questions, then you can of course contact me, or anybody who has participated in Google Summer of Code. So you can just go through this. I think you will get this presentation after this session. So you can go through this fact, or you can just yeah, Google this page, Google Summer of Code fact page. And this is the Google Summer of Code main website. So summerofcode.withgoogle.com. Yeah, and yeah, so thank you, and good luck for your proposal submission, and hopefully I hope all of you will get into the program. And yeah, I hope to see all of you in the program, and yeah, good luck for all of you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Rajikaya. So I think most of the things Rajikaya mentioned earlier would also like would be overlapping some of my slides as well. So to start things off, so hi everyone, I'm Asel Piris, and I'm currently working as a full stack software engineer at Arimac. And I completed GSoC in both year 2019 and 2020, and this was under the organizations Catrabat and Terrasolati. So if I briefly explain about the projects I did in Catrabat, the project I worked on was called Pocket Code. So Pocket Code is a simple mobile application. It's something similar to Scratch that children can use to get started with coding. So in this Pocket Code project, I had to come up with uh, a, di- a content delivery mechanism to submit the data from the submit the data that is available on the cloud into their mobile phone. So that was the simplest explanation I can give. But if you want, you can definitely go through the archives and check out the code as well. In the second project, what I had to develop is I had to develop uh, I had to come up with a simple full stack solution where participants under certain open source organizations, for example, they can submit a project, and basically it's a solution where open source contributors can create a proposal and submit it to a particular organization and get feedback from the organization itself. Because currently, I don't think there's a clear-cut pathway for open source contributors to get in touch with open source organizations. So, basically, Terrasolgy wanted me to develop a small solution that allows uh, contributors that are willing to contribute to Terrasolgy to get in touch with the organization and basically submit a proposal. So that those two were the simplest. Uh, that's the simplest explanation I can give on the project side. So moving on. So what exactly is GSoC, you might ask? So GSoC is simply put, a global program that is organized by Google. So the second point is a bit wrong because think I think recently they allowed working professionals as well as university students to take part in GSoC. So they have changed that. And yeah, so basically what happens is Google selects a set of organizations, and these selected organizations, they announce a particular set of projects, and interested students can then apply to take part in these projects, and usually they work, if they get selected, then they continue to work on this project for 4 months, and at the very end of the program, the organization checks your progress, as in whether you have successfully achieved what you mentioned in your proposal, and then they decide whether or not you have successfully passed or failed the program. So that's basically what GSoC is. And yeah, so you might ask, like, why would I want to, like, as a student, why would you want to participate in GSoC, right? So in my case, so I could give like hundreds of reasons why you might want to take part in GSoC. So in my case, like these things that I have pointed out here, these were the main reasons that I felt like that made me want to take part in GSoC. So the first and most important thing I feel like that I gained from GSoC is, like, I felt GSoC was an amazing learning experience. So in the first year that I got selected to GSoC, I think I was a second year student at SLIIT. And to give you a bit of my context, so during that time, I honestly had no idea about web development, and there was basically a module called mobile application development at SLIIT, and I did develop a couple of applications, but I I was still a bit of a noob when it comes to programming. So um, yeah, but I definitely had the willingness to learn. So the project I chose during the first year was a mobile based project, and during the, like, fortunately I ended up getting selected, and during that time I was able to learn, like, many new things, like as in, like, build tools about like how to properly code. Like, if you like back then, if you compare it with my code base, like my code base was like, if you compare it with the programs that I coded, the code base was simply a mess, and I learned about, like, what sort of uh, learned about many concepts, and basically the 4 month period was an amazing time period where I managed to learn many new things. The second point is, like, in the second point, you also get recognized by Google, like when you successfully complete the summer of code program. um, you actually get I think in my case it was a simple PDF file, but even in that case, like, you seem to get a certificate from Google. So I think that's something really prestigious that like many people can't brag about such things. So yeah, that's something really nice I got from the GSoC as well. And also, like, the next point is, like, you also get to work with an amazing set of people. Basically, in my case, uh, in both of the projects I did, I got to know many people from around the globe. So, um, and the mentors I met, they were like, even to this day, like when I come across something, like if I come across something technically that I don't have a clear idea about, there are times that I still get in touch with those mentors, and they definitely, like during the last couple of years as well, they have been helping me a lot. So yeah, you definitely get to work with and meet a lot of new people that are like all over the world. So sorry. And also you also get to earn some sort of a reputation, because I believe GSoC is somewhat of a prestigious program, as in like all the students, since all the students that apply to the program, like since they don't get selected, you earn some sort of respect as well. And also, like Rajikaya mentioned, you get some swags as well. So I got two t-shirts and some stickers, and yeah, there was a pen as well. And finally, and lastly but not most importantly, you also get paid during this time. So I think for this year's program, I think like Rajika mentioned, the stipend it varies between 1,500 US dollars and 3,000 US dollars. So if you briefly compare, like convert it to Sri Lankan rupees, I think that's roughly around 700,000 rupees. 700,000, it was 800,000 rupees. So since this keeps getting like since the dollar value is getting higher and higher, and since you're getting paid using dollars, I think like this would be one of the best investments you can make during the coming years. So yeah, you definitely get paid a lot as well. So some of the misconceptions that I felt like most of the people that I communicated like previously, some friends that I talked with, some misconceptions. So here are some misconceptions they had. So some feel like not having worked with an open source project before is a hindrance. Like when you're getting started. So um, I feel like that's actually. Not something like that, because when you're getting started, you obviously have to start somewhere, right? And in most of these open source organizations, they always like welcome you with open hands. So they are like they always, like even all the most of the people within the organization, like they are always helpful. Like if you have any questions, you can always ask them, and whenever they have free time, or like if you even send them a private message, they are always willing to help you and get you up to date with the code base. So like not knowing about open source, or like having not been like having prior experience working with an open source project is definitely not a hindrance. So yeah, so uh, the next point is like some also feel like GSoC takes too much time, because even in my case, like when I was initially applying for GSoC, I was a little bit dubious as well, because I also had my university work to follow up with, and I also had to do the assignments and all those things that you guys might be doing at the moment. So yeah, so I feel like it's definitely manageable. Like if you think about it, like since almost all of the other in previous years, since almost all of the other participants of GSoC, since all of them are university students, even like if they can manage, like why can't you manage like the time properly, right? So it's definitely something manageable, and I can attest to that from my personal experience as well. So not having time is not an excuse to not to apply for GSA. So sorry, the third point is some feel like they need to be some sort of an expert when it comes to when it comes to applying to GSoC. But it like I mentioned earlier, it's this is also another common misconception. Like you don't have to know everything when you're applying to GSoC. It's just that it's better if you know about like I mean, you need to have some sort of foundational tech stack that you have some knowledge on. But on top of that, like you don't have to know everything about that particular tech stack. It's enough if you have a foundation, and then you can like during the contributing period, you can just build on top of that and start learning new things. So even in my case, like when I was first in my first year when I was applying to the uh, in my second year when I was applying to the web-based project, um, I honestly knew the basics of React. So, and I had no idea about backend development. So this second project was a full stack project. So uh, only during that time period did I only during the contribution period, the initial contribution period, did I start to learn the most of the backend related things. So you'd like to sum it up, you don't have to know everything. Like if you just need to have some sort of a uh, foundational skill set, and then during the GSoC period you can build on top of that, and uh, start to improve yourself on both tech skills and your communication skills. And the final point is like some feel like they will not get through, and like applying for the program is a waste of time because of that. But I can definitely guarantee you, like the the advantages you gain from getting selected, like they far outweigh the disadvantages. Like the like something like this, like the advantages you gain from getting selected are extremely like valuable. So definitely don't let like thoughts like this stop you from applying to GSoC. So sorry, moving on. So you might ask like what you need to know to like apply to GSoC, like what sort of a foundational set of skill sets you need to apply to GSoC. So in my case, so if I look at my second project, the web-based one, um, when I was applying, I had a decent understanding about React, but that was about it. And most importantly, you need to know about like some sort of version controlling system. So in both of the projects I applied to, they use GitHub for version controlling, and in I think there are other projects that have separate VCSs. So I think it depends on the organization you choose, and some of these organizations, they also have separate issue trackers. So uh, most of these things depend on the organization you choose. So when you're choosing the organization, make sure like you're familiar with the tech stack and the VCS that they are using. And the most this third point is really important as well. So you need to be able to communicate really well with the organization, with the other participants and with the mentors. So being able to communicate is also a key point, I'd say. So if you have these 3 points, then I think you are good to start contributing and applying to GSoC. So the most important thing is like when it comes to like not only GSoC, I feel like when it comes to open source is like your attitude and your commitment. I think Rajikaya also touched upon this topic. So uh, so if I briefly move on to the next slide, I think so. When it comes to GSoC, like it's better if you can start like as soon as possible, because right now I think it might be a bit too late, but I think you'll be able to like manage. But the sooner you start, like even Rajika mentioned this, I think so the sooner you start, the better it will be. Like the sooner you can start like contributing to the code base, then I think the higher the chance of you getting selected. So when you're starting to apply, the first thing I feel like you should do is like you should start like this is before the organizations are announced, but right now I think the organizations for this particular year have already been announced. So let's say if you are applying next year as well, even before the organizations are announced, you can like definitely go through the last year's organization list, and you can then find projects that best suit you. So from best suiting you, what I mean is, um, sorry, choose projects that have like a similar set of skill sets, like a required set. The basically, I think in each one of these projects, they have a set of required skill sets. As in, like in web-based projects, they might have React, and Redux, and those sort of things. So try to find set of try to shortlist a set of projects that match your skill set, and then go through their code base and yeah, find their GitHub repositories and websites, look through their issue list, and if you can start, like the sooner you start going through their issues, and the sooner you start making pull requests and contributing to their code base, the better it is. Yeah, and definitely, most important, do research a lot. Like if you have any questions about their code base, like if you find anything that is hard to understand, definitely get in touch with the mentors, I mean, not the mentors, the organization admins, and start asking questions from them. Basically, like even like Rajikaya mentioned, what you need to do is, like, you need to give them a really good impression about yourself, that you are something that's willing to put in the commitment and work that is required to this project. So yeah, do start researching, and start contributing as soon as possible. So the other point is, I think this is a really key point, because in most of these GSoC projects, I think there are at least around 10 or 15 students applying for each one of these projects. So it's really vital that you stand out from the rest of these applicants, and show that you are capable of delivering this project. So some ways that you might be able to achieve this is using, like, you can definitely, I think, all of the almost all of these organizations, they either have a Jitter channel, or some of them have Discord channels. Like in most of these, I in most of those channels, you can always like when you're joining, make sure, like I think Rajikaya also touched upon it. Make sure you introduce yourself with your skill set and what you have worked on prior to this, and like the projects you have done before. Like give a brief introduction about yourself, and something you can do to like stand out from the rest of them is, like, you can always start helping others. Like in most of these chats, like for example, some of them might be asking like how I would be, some of the other students, like they might be asking how like I'm coming across this issue, like when setting up the project. Like you can start answering those questions, and I'm 100% sure, like the you answering those questions, like it's definitely getting noticed by all those organization admins and mentors. So in my case, like whenever I saw someone else asking a question, I try to like do some research about that question and try to answer it in a polite way. um, yeah, yeah, the third point is, like whenever you answer a question, like try to do some research about it, and try to keep it as simple as possible. And yeah, and being polite is also another key point. Yeah, the most important thing is, like, that can set you apart from the rest of the applicants is, um, is being able to like contribute to that project. So if I briefly explain from my personal experience, so during this during this second project, which was a web-based one, basically there were some really minor bugs. So some even small bugs. There were like there were really small bugs that required only that required the there were really small bugs that required the committer to only change a small string. So, and there were some really some really new features that were requested. Something that I worked on was, I worked on a Google Calendar integration. So if you compare it with something like something like that, something I said, like I said before, um, having being able to contribute to some sort of being able to fix a bigger bug or implement a new feature is, like, it really sets you apart from the other students. Like I think the main reason I got selected for that second project was the fact that I was able to implement that Google Calendar integration, uh, that new feature. So I think it really set me apart from the rest of the students. Yeah. So being able to contribute to such vital issues, or being able to implement such new features, is another way that you can set yourself apart from rest of the applicants. And if I move on, um, sorry, um, like I said earlier, communication is another vital part in this. So whenever you are communicating, try to like it's not a must that you like follow these rules, but try to like always, like uh, follow these rules, because they are like some untold set of rules that like makes it easier for your mentors to communicate back to you as well. So whenever you are using those IRCs, try not to use caps and never overemphasize. And when you're responding, be quick to respond. Like when if someone asks you a question, or if an organization mentor asks you a question, be quick and be responsive. And don't use sir or madam. Like try to address them using their name. And never use like these important, urgent, like these sort of texts. Like, and be polite. And, don't use HTML mails. And this is another key point. Like before you ask a question, like always make sure that you have researched about that particular topic. So, for example, let's say you don't understand a particular part about the code base. So when you're asking that question, try to word it in a way that 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 shows the organization admins that you have done some research about this topic, but you were still unable to crack it for some reason. So whenever you're asking a question, like try to do your homework before asking that particular question. And yeah, don't post ads. I think that doesn't need any explanation. Don't use any SMS languages. Don't hijack threads. Communicate in simple English. Write clean and clear emails. Uh, Try to keep personal messages to a minimum and use the channels that everyone can access. And yeah, if you have a question, like check the mail archives first. So um, like check whether the question you are trying to ask is has already been answered before, so that they like it doesn't get unnecessarily repeated. So try to follow these communication guidelines, and I think you will make a good impression of yourself to the mentors. So if I move on, so this is basically the uh, timeline for this year's program. So I think we are somewhere in between these two steps. So the organizations have already been announced. So the Google has already gone through the organizations and selected the particular set of organizations. And so this is I believe this is the from here to here, from the starting point to this May 20th point, is the most important time period, because during this time is like where you can actually start contributing to this project. So I think the application period begins on I think it has already begun, and the application deadline is on April 19th. So like Rajikaya mentioned, like try to get your proposal ready 2 weeks prior to this. So you have like some leeway, like if the mentors want to uh, like, like definitely send it to, like when you have like come up with the draft proposal, definitely get it reviewed by the administrators of of the particular organization you are applying to. And obviously, like when you ask them to review the application, they will definitely like come up with some changes or like some improvements. They might have some questions. So it's better if you can have like at least 2 weeks leeway, like if you can get this ready 2 weeks prior to this deadline. And after you submit your proposal, so I believe so it's on April 19th, the deadline for the proposals. So even from April 19th to May 20th, you can still contribute during this period as well. So even after you stop, like even after you submit your application, uh, keep contributing, because personally what I feel like is like the more contributions you have, the more bugs you have fixed, the more features that you have implemented, the higher the chance of you getting selected to GSoC. So keep contributing during this period as well. And on May 20th, I believe they will be announcing the selected set of student projects. So hopefully, like all of you guys will get selected to GSoC as well. So after the student projects are announced, there's this small time period known as sorry, the community bonding period. So this is a time period where you get to know the other organization admins, and this is where like you can learn more about the history of your project. And this is also the time where you can like brush up on your skills. And if your project contains, in my case, like there were some designs that I had to do. And also I had to come up with some sort of API documentation. So this is where like you can do all sort of those things. And yeah, and the coding period, I believe it officially starts on June 13th. And from June 13th up until September 12th, I think the coding period extends between this time period. And once you submit your uh, code, the final code, so like Rajika mentioned earlier, so during this time period there would be three, I believe. I don't think it has changed, but I believe there are three evaluations. And so for each one of those evaluations, you have to you have to make sure you have achieved the particular set of goals that you have set earlier. And you have to make sure you have delivered as well. So if you haven't delivered, like there's a chance that you might fail the program. So try to make sure you stay within the uh, like try to make sure that you deliver what you have like promised them early on in your proposal. And I think there won't be any issue like that. And finally, I think the results are announced on September 20th. So yeah, so this is basically the brief timeline of this year's program. So if I move on, and so when the organizations are announced, so this is, like I mentioned earlier, this is the most important time. Like this is the most important time, like for you as a student, because this is where you get to contribute to a particular organization. So when the organizations are announced, so the first thing you would want to do is you would want to check through the organization. So what you would need to do is, so if I briefly exit this slideshow, you can visit this site. And in here, uh, they have allowed us to choose these you can basically select them based on your category. So let's say if I want to uh, find a web-based project, then just simply click on this button, and the web-based projects are sorted out for you. So filtered out for you. So here then, or else, like if let's say if you're on like comfortable with a particular tech stack, so let's say you are comfortable with React, then you can simply type in React here. And the organizations with React also displayed here. So for example, like if I choose Jitsi, so the next thing you would want to do is like you would want to what I would suggest you do is like simply like go through all these organizations, like even without, like in my case what I did was it might take some time, but I believe it's worth it. So after filtering, what you can do is like you can simply, so let's say I want all the organizations with web-based projects. What I would suggest you do is simply uh, go go through all these organizations. From going through these organizations, what I mean is like if I open this up, um, here they have a um, a contributor guidance. So this I believe is something. So it's basically a simple FAQ like with how to contribute to that particular organization. So the most important thing is this ideas list. So what you would want to do is click on that button, and in this case, I think it's 2022. So here, I think they have a set of uh, ideas that you can apply to. So for example, if I click on this task meeting, so this is their task, and the skill set that is required is React, React Native, and JavaScript. They have briefly described like what they are expecting from this particular project. So so what you would want to do is like go through all these ideas lists and find suitable projects that match your set of skills. So find a once you find a project that matches your skill set, you know, note it down, and then once you have gone through all the projects, then you have a clear set of projects that you can contribute. So just go through all this. Like if you are planning to apply for a web-based project, go through all the ideas lists, and yeah, shortlist a set of projects. And the next step is go to their find the repositories of those projects. So let's say I'm interested about this particular project. So go to their I think go to Jitsi and find the if this is not a new project, like find the repository of that particular project, try to go through the code base, and try to understand like what they have done so far and like what is required from this project. So once you have done all of those things, then you have a clear idea about like what they are expecting from this project and what is left to be implemented during your coding period. So so when you have done that, I think you would have a two or three projects that you would want to apply to. But in my case, like what I would suggest is like it's better if you can, like Rajika mentioned, you can apply to three projects, I believe, at a time. But it's better if you can like apply to. In my case, in both of my years, but I only applied for one project. So try to select a good project and try to keep the quality of your application higher without applying to multiple projects. So so yeah, if I move back to the slides, yeah, select a good project, and the next step is writing a good proposal. So this is, I believe, the other most important thing when applying to GSoC is like having a good proposal. So here I have some tips to help you guys out writing a good proposal. So when it comes to writing proposals, like Rajika mentioned, so each organization, like they, I think they have each one of the organizations, they have a separate set of requirements when it comes to proposals. So some have uh, a predefined structure you have to follow. So yeah, so in my case, so in both of the organizations that I applied to, like they had a predefined structure that we needed to follow. So sorry, when writing your proposal, like make sure you clearly state your approach. So try to be simple and try to be descriptive about like uh, how you are planning to implement this project. If possible, use diagrams and use flowcharts, and and most importantly, like this is a really key point, like try to include a proper timeline. So like as in like during the first evaluation period, I'll be implementing these and these features. Likewise, so try to have having a proper timeline really helps as well. And also like if you can like if there's a requirement to add code snippets, you can do that as well. And definitely like you can definitely use Google Docs for this. And from using Google Docs, you can always ask your mentors to go through your draft proposal, and you can ask them to give feedback and comments on your proposal. So, if I briefly show you my proposal that was submitted for the second project. So so this was the project proposal I submitted for that web-based project, and in that they in the structure they required us to give them a brief introduction about myself and my familiar tech stack. And in here, they wanted me to give a brief introduction about the project and the requirement of it. So I have covered those things, and I also had to mention the tech stack I was going to use. And this point they didn't require in the structure, but um, since it since like I wanted to include it because I felt like it might give the organization admins more clarity on what I'm trying to uh, build during the summer of code period. So I also included the MVP. So for the front end, I briefly so each one of the user interfaces that I was going to develop, I included a wireframe, and I had this introduction section where I briefly described what this UI was doing, and and I also included some implementation notes and API endpoints that I was going to use in each one of these UIs was also included. So I did that for all the UIs, but these things don't have to be there on your application, because in some cases, like the organizations, they limit the number of words and the number of pages your application can have. But in my case, like there wasn't a set limit, so I was free to include anything that I wanted. So basically what I did was I tried to be as descriptive as possible when it came to the proposal. So uh, I basically described everything in here, and yeah. So when it came to the backend, I included a small ER diagram. I briefly mentioned the entities that were there, and I also wanted to briefly touch upon like how I was going to handle large files and images, and this sending notifications and emails. Those things I briefly wanted to touch up upon. So I included those points as well, and yeah, and I included the base API reference with all the API endpoints that I was going to include. Um, and some I included some notes on like how I was going to secure the project, and yeah, and I also mentioned how I was going to implement the backend testing as well. So something that I did, like that I want, like something that I did in order to set me apart from the rest of the students was like I also implemented a small working prototype. So in this case, like I implemented like in the ideas in the idea list for this particular project, they required a set of they mentioned a particular set of requirements. Like they mentioned that there needed to be some sort of a markdown editor with content automatically saving every few seconds. So what I did was I developed a small prototype, and I had a working prototype before the submission, like before the proposal deadline. So what I did was I also included that in my proposal. So I did a small video explaining them about the implementation of that project of the prototype. So this was my prototype, and yeah, so I mentioned the repositories for that prototype, and yeah, so this is the other most important thing. So this was the time schedule I mentioned. So in here, like what I did was I clearly divided all the weeks. So I think there were like the program, since the program was 16 weeks, for every week. So I divided it based on the major timeline event. So this is what I was going to do in the community bonding period, and this was what I was going to do during the initial the first coding phase. Likewise, what I did was I divided everything into uh, small time slots, and so that the mentors have a clear idea like what I would be doing during that particular week. So and this also helped me like show the mentors my progress during the evaluations, because so during the first evaluation, like what I only had to do was I only had to follow them up on like this these set of features. Like I only had to show them that I have completed these set of features and that I'm good to go. So it really helped the mentors like evaluate the project as well. So I really highly suggest you guys also do this in your proposal. So these things are not really required, but in your case, like the proposal might be really small as well. But try to include this, because I believe this plays a uh, huge role on getting selected as well, because this gives your mentors a clear overview of how you are going to implement your particular project. So yeah, and I believe yeah, these are some questions they asked on the that was mentioned on the required proposal structure. So I don't think these things are necessary. So if I move back to the sorry, if I move back to the slides, uh, yeah. So hopefully, like after submitting your application, I hope all of you guys get selected. So, um, so yeah, I'm definitely sure all of you guys are going to get selected. So if you follow the key points that I mentioned earlier, so once you're selected, the next thing you have to do is like you have to like make sure like you bond with your mentors. From bonding, what I mean is like get to know your mentors. If you can, try to organize a couple of meetings, get to know like on during which time period that they will be available on, like try to get to know like how, like if you have any questions, like you might want to know how you want to reach out to them. Like maybe they might be fine with you sending them private messages, or maybe they might want you to send them an email instead of sending a private message. Likewise, make sure you get to know your mentor. And also, like when the uh, when the program starts, try to never ditch a meeting, right? Because um, these meetings are really important. In my case, like in both of my organizations, we had a weekly meeting. So during this weekly meeting, we had to show the progress, as in like we had to show what were the things that we did during this period. And we also had to so we also had to day by day show them like what we did during this each day. And we also like Rajikaya mentioned, we also had to submit a weekly blog post as well. So I think I had it opened up. So this is basically what my blog post looked like. So I gave a brief introduction, and I mentioned what I did during this every day, and I also mentioned uh, what the hurdles I came across were, and I also briefly mentioned what's planned for the next week. So your blog post, it doesn't necessarily have to be that long. Like try to show what you have. Like if your organization, like some organizations, they require you to uh, submit a blog post, but either way, what I believe is like it's even if they don't require, it's better if you can submit a blog post, because it allows you to even in the future like show someone else that you did these things during your GSoC time period. So yeah, so that's really important as well. And yeah, never ditch a meeting, and finish your work on time. So so if you have like so try to like when in my previous step, I mean in my proposal I showed you guys like I divided everything into weekly time slots. So I think when you're trying to do something that is allocated to that particular week, um, there are times that I got stuck as well. So if you get stuck on something, like always always try to be open about it. Ask questions from your mentors and let them know that you are stuck on this particular point. And if you can, like try to arrange a meeting with or like arrange a meeting with your mentor and get it sorted out as soon as possible, and stop it from like pro- and stop it from like try to get it sorted as soon as possible, because sometimes I felt like, even in my case, there were times that I couldn't really continue to work for 1 or 2 days because I had a blocker. So what I did was, instead of when I got stuck, instead of asking my mentors, there were times that I spent like multiple hours trying to figure out a small issue. But if I, like, reached out to my mentor and asked it beforehand, then I could have, like, maybe uh, saved myself for 2 or 3 days. Like, that has happened to me a handful of times. So if you come across any questions, be open about it. Like, even if it's a small question, like obviously do research about it before asking the question. But even if it's a small question, like, openly mention that I searched on this topic, and like, I followed this guide, I went through this documentation, but I couldn't really find an answer for that. So please help me out, help me figure this out question. So that way, your I'm sure your mentors would, like, get in touch with you and help you out answering, like, whatever question you come across during the uh, development period. And the other point is, make sure, like, you deliver as promised, because obviously, like, at the very end of the program, like, they the mentors, like, they go through, like, everything you have done, and they check whether, like, you have managed to meet all the goals you set at the very beginning of the program. So make sure you deliver everything that you promised, and so that there won't be any issues, like you getting disqualified from the program. So yeah, it's your organization that decides, like, at the end, that whether or not you pass GSoC. So try to, whenever you are contributing, try to, whenever you're talking, when you're communicating, be always, like, uh, friendly with your organization, be friendly to your mentors, be like, try to be try to follow those communication guidelines I provided earlier, and I'm sure there won't be any issues during the coding period. So, so when GSoC is over, what you want to do is, like, obviously don't stop contributing. Like, if you can, and if you have time on your hand, you can definitely continue to keep contributing, and like, that way, like, you definitely get to learn many new things, and also, like, you will also get recognized within the community. So, like, Rachikaya mentioned, you also have the chance of becoming a mentor in the following years. And yeah, and also you can be famous among the FOSS community as well. So yeah, so when GSoC is over, never stop contributing. Try to, keep contributing in the future as well. And yeah, I believe, yeah, that sums up the presentation. And if there are any questions, I would love to answer them.
Hey, I guess that sums up for today, I guess, right? So before that, do you have any more questions which you need answering? Shall I start with one? What do you say? Hello.
Yes, Sakaran.
Okay. So I have this one question which needs answered. So
Yeah.
let's say, like, if you take a project,
Mhm.
GSoC, let's say you start working on a project, around how many work hours like do you estimate like will be needed to complete the project? Like basically a mid-level
So,
project.
so I think during this particular year, I think they have clearly mentioned like there are basically two types of projects. I think.
Hmm?
So I think there are medium-sized projects and there are large projects. In I think for large projects, I think they are. I'm not exactly sure, but I think if you go and have a look at their documentation, you'll be able to get a better idea. I think you need around 350 hours for a large project. I think so. Yeah, it's some sort of it's something like doing an internship basically.
Yeah.
So you obviously need to have some time on your hand, but I'm sure like you'll be able to manage within the with your university work as well. So it
Okay,
won't be an
got it.
issue.
Yeah. So I guess we don't have any more questions, right? So thank you once again, Asel and Aselaya and Rajika for joining with us, and it was a wonderful session. And I believe that this was really, really insightful for all of us. So I guess we can wrap up for today, right? All
Yeah.
good?
So it
Okay.
was a really pleasure being here. So thanks for having me and Rajika as well.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Rajik,
Have a good
hi.
night.
Good night. Okay.